So, in order to continue our lecture, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to conduct this checklist. So, at the beginning of every STATA Lab day, you're going to get a checklist, and we're going to make sure that everything is ready to go before we continue. Okay? Okay, welcome back. So now that you guys have already downloaded the folder, I'm going to say several more things just to get yourself comfortable with Stata. So one of the first tips I'm going to give you is that what you're going to learn is you're going to learn how to code, which means that there's going to be a lot of information. And I personally found it useful to actually keep track of everything for myself, so a lot of times what I would do is that I would just create a just Word document with different kinds of codes and how to use those codes onto a Word document. So you should be able to, so that's going to make it a little bit easier for you to keep track of everything that you have done. Okay, so that's the first tip. All right. And the second tip is once we open Stata, there are several things I want to mention. The first thing is Stata will only allow you to open one data set at a time. So that is slightly different from the Excel that you might be comfortable with, which is you can just open as many spreadsheets as possible. That is actually a recipe for disaster, and Stata is trying to stop you from making mistakes. Okay, so Stata will only open one data set at the same time, and make sure that because you're working on one single data set at the same time, after you are done with one single data set and you want to move on to a different data set, make sure you save this current data set so that you don't lose the work that you're doing. Okay, now let's go ahead and open Stata. Chances are there is a chance that your status interface does not look like mine. So one thing I'm going to tell you is that I use a Mac version, and the Windows version will look slightly different. So for example, in the Mac version, the menu bar is at the very top, and the Windows version, the menu bar is actually at the very top of the app itself, not the very top of the screen. Okay? And the second thing is, from your default screen, you might not have the left pane. Okay. So one thing I'm going to ask you to do is what you're going to do is you're going to uh, go to View and then go to Layout and then click Widescreen. Chances are the the option that you have chosen right now, the default is the sidebar. If I chose the sidebar, the history pane is now showing. But if I just go to layout and choose widescreen, the history pane will be there. Okay. And one thing you can do is you can actually resize any of these windows however you want. You can make them as big as you want, as small as you want. Okay. But sometimes, just because you get a little bit of a trigger happy, you're going to resize some window and the window will be gone for some reason. And don't worry about that because you can always recover your window accordingly. So all you need to do is literally just go to Google and search, I want to get back a certain window from my Stata, and somebody will tell you how to do so. Okay. So right now, as you can see, this is the status interface. The left pane is the history pane that gives you the entire recorded history of your current session, what you have done, whether you have encountered any kind of errors and mistakes. And the results section in the middle gives you the output of all of the commands. And the commands is at the bottom. This is where you type your commands. This is the first place you type your commands, but this is actually not a place to record your commands. And that is something we're going to talk about a little bit later. And on the right-hand side, it gives you the variable information, and the lower right-hand side, it gives you the properties of the dataset. Chances are this is probably the least useful section for you. So if you get confused about this part a little bit, that's fine. Just make sure that you understand the rest of it. Okay. And as you can see right now, we don't have any dataset open. Okay. Because when you see here on the right-hand side, there's no variable whatsoever. Okay. So in order for us to open a dataset, it is as simple as just going to the folder and then just clicking a data set. So for example, if I just double click this country.dta, not county, country.dta data set, if I just double click, you can see that the data set is loaded for you. Okay? So first of all, if you look at the results section, you can see that Stata actually has automatically created a line of code for you. And this line of code is use. Use in Stata means just open a dataset, use a dataset. And then this is the path. This is the location of the dataset. So on my computer, it's under the folder users, and then under the folder utils, under the folder desktop. Remember, we put the folder on the desktop, and then topic one, and then the dataset's name is country.dta. And if you click this history pane, this part, you can see that the command is actually automatically generated for you again in the commands window. So you can just always go back to your history and see what kind of commands have been generated. Okay. So I'm going to delete that here. And then I'm going to bring your attention to the right-hand side. And you can see that with this data set, there are a lot of variables. And each of these variable, like remember, I can resize any of the columns. Each variable generally have a label. Basically, this label gives you more information about the variable. Okay. So because a lot of times when it comes to Stata, the variable name has a certain character limit. You can only name your character at a certain number. So a lot of times people don't really know what UNEM underscore per means. So what you're going to look at is the label here, which is the unemployment total. Okay. So label is a really, really good tool to give your readers more information or other people who look at your code more information about what you're going to do. Okay. And on top of that, I also want to emphasize that we can actually look at the data set just like a spreadsheet. And this is where you're going to look at the upper right-hand side of the computer, of the app. Okay. So there are two different icons here. They're both called data editor. And there's one icon. If you zoom in, you're going to see that it's a spreadsheet, kind of a table icon with a pencil on it. And there's another icon with a magnifying glass on it. Okay. So one thing I'm going to tell you now is that you should never, ever, ever click this icon. You should always be clicking this icon because this icon opens up the dataset for you, but it allows you to make changes to the dataset. We don't want that because if you make changes to the dataset in the spreadsheet, Stata is now going to be able to record what you have done. So if you screw up somewhere, you would never ever know and you would have contaminated the dataset. On the other hand, if we click this icon, for example, if I just click it now, you're going to see that this is the dataset that we're currently looking at. Okay. And one thing you're going to see is that no matter what I type, you can see that I'm typing here, no matter what I type, the dataset, the entry does not change. So this is a read only data editor. That is why it called data editor browse. You can only look at the dataset, you cannot change the dataset. One of the biggest no-nos with data analysis is to contaminate the data without any kind of record. And that is why you're always using this window instead of the other window. Okay. And like you have seen, the dataset is arranged in the classic dataset format that we have introduced in the previous class. Okay. And here you can see that all the variables are arranged by columns and all the observations are arranged by rows. And you might be thinking, okay, some of these data sets are in black and some of these data sets are in red. What's going on? Well, the reason here is that Stata only reads data set as numbers, okay? So when it's a 1992 or 144,85543, Stata knows it's number. But once we go to AFG or Afghanistan, Stata doesn't really know what to do with it. So Stata is going to label it as red, and Stata is basically going to label it as a string variable. This is what they call it, a string variable. And Stata is basically going to say that I don't know how to do mathematical operation with these characters. So I'm just going to tell you I don't know what to do with this. Okay. And another thing that you might have noticed that there's some observations that are just dots. When the observation is a dot, Stata basically means that means that it's a missing value. So for example, in Afghanistan, we don't actually have information about the GDP of Afghanistan in 1995. And as a result, it's just a dot. Okay, so anytime you see a dot, that means the observation is missing. Right? So after that, I want to give you a little bit more information about the structure or how Stata functions. So when it comes to Stata, this is what we call a interactive Stata framework. So this is where you can input information and Stata will respond to you. But on top of that, there are actually two additional important files that you need to pay attention to. Okay. So the first file is called a do file. So if I click this button here, Stata is going to create a new do file for me. And this do file is untitled. And as you can see, on top of this Stata window, there's another window. This is the do file window. And the important thing to know about the do file window is that it records. You can actually put all kinds of commands in here, and Stata will be able to run all the commands in one go. So basically, this imagine this do file to be a note for Stata that you put in to tell Stata what to do. This is the window that you're going to put in all of your codes. Okay. And on top of that, there's going to be another thing called a log file. And the log file is there to literally take a log of everything that you have done. Okay, so you can see that there is a button here, and we're going to learn how to create a log file using code. So there is a visual representation of what we're doing here. And if you just go to graphs and go to topic one graphs, and you're going to see that the first picture that you see here is basically a visual representation of what Stata is doing. So the interactive Stata is the Stata that we're currently looking at right now. And what we usually do as data analysts is we create a do file, and this file is going to end with a .do format. And this do file will record all of the commands, and then once you click run, there's a button on the do file window called run. Once you click run, Stata will feed all of the commands from the do file to the interactive Stata, and the interactive Stata is going to carry out all of your commands, and then all of the results will be shown in this result pane. But on top of that, because we want to record everything we have done, Stata will also create a log file. There's a mistake here. Before the file was called .log, now it's called .smcl. So you are going to see later on that we are going to automatically create a log file using the do file. Okay, so this is kind of a two-step kind of process. So you create a do file and you store all of your commands in it. And once you click run, the do files commands will be sent to interactive Stata, and Stata will carry out all of your commands, and then all the results will be automatically copied into a log file. So as you can see, it's relatively automatic. You don't have to do a lot of copying and pasting. Stata will do all of these things for you. And this is why we say Stata is self-documenting. It not only documents the commands you're running, it also documents all the results that you're seeing. Okay, so like I said, what we can do is we can open a do file. And remember, we just open a data set, but if we want to do a little bit more than just looking at it, we actually need to move to the do file, just like what we're doing now. Okay? And before we do anything with the do file, we need to perform a little bit of key tasks. Okay? So the first thing to do when you're making a do file is a lot of times when you write a lot of commands, you want to make note of what you have done so you don't confuse your future self or you don't confuse other people who are reading your codes. So the first important thing to do is to actually write notes. And there are four different ways of writing notes. Okay. The first way to writing a note is to start with a star symbol. Okay, so the first line, you do a star symbol, and you can just say that this is a note. So and you can close it with the star two. And once you do this, Stata will know that Stata automatically will be color coding it to green, which means Stata will know that, oh, you're just making a note for yourself. Stata is now going to read this and try to carry this out as a command. Okay, so as soon as a note is correctly formatted, it will be green, and Stata will just completely ignore this row, this thing. Okay, and the second type of note that you can type is you can actually comment the remainder of any line with some kind of with two backslashes. Okay. So what you can do is that let's suppose I copy this command. So this command, I'm just going to copy it. So if I copy this command and paste this command here, Stata will carry out this command, but maybe I just want to add some note to it just to remind myself what I'm doing. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to type two backslashes and say that this is a note, or I can say that this line opens the data set country.dta. So again, when Stata sees this line of command, Stata will only run the command up to this part, and anything after this part that's green is going to be considered as a note for yourself. Stata is now going to is automatically just going to ignore it. Okay. And another thing to add note is maybe your note is really, really long. Your note turns into two different lines. So what you can do is that you can start with a backsplash and then a star, and you can say that this is a really long note that can go to the second line. And as you can see, Stata will automatically consider the second line, even this line, to also be a note, right? And whenever you are done with your note, what you can do is to close it with a star and a backsplash. And after that, Stata will go back to normal and consider the next line to also be a command. Okay? So this is how we understand this. Okay. So in order for us to actually do, I'm going to delete this because this is just an example. And in order for us to actually start doing something, remember, we have already opened a data set. Okay. But here's the thing. We're learning computer programming. We're not learning clicking and pointing. Okay. So we are actually going to learn how to use Stata, how to use code to tell Stata to open the data set for us. And remember, Stata only opens one data set at a time. So right now, Stata has a data set already open. So Stata will not open another data set unless we tell Stata to. Okay. So this is where the single most important line of code that you will learn will come handy. And the line of code is very simple. It's clear. Okay. And the way this Stata does that, if you have this clear and if you click do, on the right hand side, if you click do, you're going to see that Stata has completely cleared the worksheet for you. All the variables are gone. If you open data editor, all the data is gone. Okay, so the first line of code is very simple. It's just clear. And just for the sake of our memory, let's take a note. Okay, so this is a code that clears data from memory so we can start fresh. Okay, and the next line of code is called CD. CD is shorthand for change directory. Okay, so CD is a line of code that basically tells Data, okay, from now on, I'm only going to be working from this directory. Directory is just a fancy word of saying folder. Okay, so CD is just a fancy word of saying I'm going to start changing the directory or the changing of the folder to a specific folder. This command comes in handy because you can just tell Stata, hey, I only want to work within this topic one folder. So just I'm now going to go to other places. So in the future, it's easier for me to grab data sets. I'm going to show you exactly how. Okay. So first of all, after the CD, you're going to put the address or the path of this folder into the code into quotation marks. Okay, so because we know that all of our data sets are within this topic one folder, and remember, this data has already generated a line of code for you about the pathway of this country.dta folder, the DTA file. So that means the folder should just be this part, right? It should just be the part right before this file name. This is the path of the folder where all my data is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this part and I'm just going to paste. So this way, I'm just telling Stata to change my working directory to this folder. So everything should be pulled and saved into this folder. Okay? And let's take a note. So this would change the working directory to said folder. Okay? And the beauty of the do file is that, unlike in Stata, when you have to type your command to one line at a time, Stata will just run all of the codes for you automatically. So if I click do, Stata will start from the beginning and run all of the codes in my do file. So you can see that Stata has cleared the dataset again, and then it has changed the working directory to this topic one folder. Okay, you can see that Stata has a result here and says, okay, I'm working under this folder now. Okay, and the next line of code is called capture log close. Okay, so this line of code is very interesting because this line of code closes any log file that is already open. Remember, a log file is a file that records all of the results that you see from Stata. And in order to not confuse ourselves and have one single log file that records everything that we have done with different kinds of projects, what we like to do is to create a new log file for a new project. So in this case, this class for the first Stata day, that is one specific project, we want to create a new log file. So this line of code will actually just close any existing log file that might have been left open. Okay? So if we click do, you can see that the result says, okay, so the log files have already been closed. Any log file that's open has already been closed. Actually, we don't have any log file that's open, so we don't really care. Okay? And the next thing is we are going to actually use code to create a log file. I'm just going to call it topic one. And on top of that, I'm going to add an option. The way in Stata to add an option is to type a comma, and then I'm going to type append. So what we're doing here is not only telling Stata to create a log file called topic one, but also telling Stata if this topic one file is already in the folder that we're currently working in right now, the topic one folder, then this Stata will not overwrite the existing log file because again, we want to record everything that we have done so that we can go back if we make a mistake. And it's going to append, meaning that it's going to just keep on adding the new results at the bottom of the existing topic one folder. So that way you never overwrite anything. Okay. So I'm going to add a note here. So this session, so asks data to store any results from this session, appending them to the end of the document. If the log file topic one.smcl already exists. Okay. So this line of code will ask Stata to store any results from this section and appending them to the end of the document if the log file topic one is already exists. Okay, so if I click do, you can see that the Stata result gives you a little bit more information, and it basically tells you Stata has created a file for you. So if you go to our topic one folder, you can see that topic one actually has this topic one folder. Stata has generated a new file for you automatically. You don't have to right click, you don't have to do anything. Stata has already generated this log file for you. And if you double click this log file, you can see that the Stata has recorded everything that you have done up until this part. Okay. So now, from now on, I'm going to call these 4 lines of code to be the first 4 lines of code because every time we start a new session, every time we start a new project, you need to clear your existing data set. You need to change your working directory to your current working folder. You need to close any existing log file, and you need to create a new log file that can record everything. Okay? So I'm going to call this the first 4 lines of code. And for all future Stata sessions, I'm going to tell you to create a first 4 lines of code. The only things you need to do here is that you need to change the working directory because depending on different topics and depending on different projects, the folder will be different. So for example, in topic 2, when we do STATA lecture, again, it's going to be called topic 2 instead of topic 1. And then I'm also going to I'm going to change the name of the log file to topic 1, topic 2 instead of topic 1 if we're working within the topic 2's framework. Okay? So that is what we're doing so far. So far it's actually pretty cool because if you pay attention, we actually told Stata to have done a lot of stuff. First of all, clear everything that's already open, change the working directory, and then save the log file into the folder that we have changed it to. So you can see that in here, I just said log using topic 1. I didn't tell Stata where to save this folder, but Stata automatically knows that you're working within this folder, so I'm just going to save this file into this folder. Okay? So before we do anything, let's actually save this do file. So what we're going to do is we're going to click save. And it's only here that you're going to have to pay attention because when you click save, you have to manually save this do file into the folder that we're working at. So what we're going to call it is I'm going to call it topic 1. Okay. So it might be a little confusing because right now we have a topic 1 folder, a topic 1 do file, and a topic 1 log file. And that is why we want to pay attention here. So first of all, a log file always has a .smcl abbreviation, okay? So that tells you it's a log file. And then for a do file, it's always called stata do file. And if I double click, I'm going to open this do file. So make sure you consistently save your do file so any of your new commands will be recorded. Okay? All right. So we're going to start with actually opening the dataset again. So remember, previously we have double-clicked the dataset country, and you can see that the command is just use this whole entire line and country.dta, okay? But here, because I've already told Stata to be working within this folder, what I can do is actually just type use country.dta, and then Stata will open the dataset for me. So for example, if I click do, remember here, I didn't tell Stata to find this file from a specific pathway, but if I click do, Stata will have opened the same dataset for me. And this is the beauty of this CD line, because from this point onward, you don't have to tell Stata the actual path of the file, because all of the files, like I showed you here, they are all in your folder. Okay? So that is how we open a data set. And so far, we haven't really done anything to our data, so it is still in its original form. But as we work through all the things, we will be changing our data set. And after we do that, we want to save the modified data set in the different in a different name so that we can make a copy of our modified data set so as to not contaminate the original data set. Okay, so remember this data set was downloaded from the original data source. Everything is clean, and we want to make sure that if we make changes to the data set, we don't contaminate the original data set, so we always save it in a different name. Okay, so how do we save the data set in a different name? Very simple, save. Okay, so I'm actually going to just call it country1.dta. So this way, Stata will save the data set for me. Okay, so here I'm going to say use country.dta, and this is a line, just to keep a note. This opens the data set country.dta within the working directory. And then after I click save, and this is going to be saving a data set, saving the existing data set in a new name called country1.dta. Okay. So if I click do again, STATA again will carry out everything for me. And specifically, if you go to the folder, you're going to see that on top of the country.dta, STATA also generated another data called country_1.dta. So basically, STATA generated STATA generated a copy of the original data, original data set. Okay. Okay. So the code is actually pretty cool right now. And let's save again so we don't lose any do file. And then let's just, because it's so cool, let's click do again. So after we click the do file, you can see that, wait a minute, the results section here, it shows it's red. That doesn't look good. And if you look at the result, you can see that the STATA actually did not carry out the last line of code because STATA just said that, okay, file country_.dta already exists. So remember, you're telling STATA when you click do, STATA is going to rerun all of the codes. Because this country1.dta was already saved, STATA is trying to save you from yourself from making mistakes. So STATA is just going to say, well, you already have a dataset called country_1.dta. I'm not going to override it. If you want to override it, you have to specifically tell me. And that is what we're specifically going to do. So we're going to actually add an option here, comma, space, replace. So this way, I'm basically telling Stata that, okay, I understand that there is a file already existing called country_1.dta. I'm just going to tell you to override it, to replace the old file. So if I click do again, you're going to see that Stata has carried out everything successfully. And if you look at the history pane, again, this is very important. If you look at the history pane, you're going to see that all of the data sets, all of the do file that's run successfully will be black, and if you encounter any kind of mistakes, the do file will show you the Stata will show you it's in red. That means there's some error message, and we need to pay attention to it. Okay, so but here's the thing. We didn't really do anything to the data set, right? So how about we actually do something to the data set before we save the data set into a different name? So for example, a lot of times, you will know why later on throughout the class, but a lot of times when we use the data, the country's GDP, we don't really use the raw dollar form. We use a natural log version of the GDP. So what we can do is that if we look at the data set, and if I just open the dataset, you can see that there is a GDP variable, but there's no logged version of the GDP variable. So what do? Well, Stata can generate that data for you. Okay, so the command to generate a variable is just gen, or you can type it generate. It's up to you. Okay, but a lot of times, with the beauty of the Stata is that you can just shorthand your command, and then Stata will be able to do things for you. So if I just type gen, and then the syntax for generating the new variable is that after gen with space, I'm going to name the new variable's name. I'm going to call it ln_GDP, and that is going to equal to the log version of the GDP variable. Okay, so let's pay attention to what we have done here. So what we have done here is that I'm telling Stata I'm generating a new variable, and the new variable's name should be ln_GDP, and this variable should be generated equal to the natural log version of the GDP variable that we already have in the dataset. Okay, so I'm generating a new variable called ln_GDP, which is the log version of the GDP variable that we already have over here. Okay, so the GDP variable is already here. So basically, I'm just telling Stata create a new variable, take the log of this, and then call it the ln.gdp. Okay, And here, if I click do, you're going to see that at the bottom here in the variable pane, you're going to see that the log GDP is created for you. So if you go to the data set again, you can see that at the end, there's a new variable called LNGDP. So this is a new GDP variable that's already automatically generated for you by Stata using one line of code. Okay, you can try to do this in Excel. I guarantee you it's going to take longer. Okay, but on top of that, you understand what LN underscore GDP is. Chances are most other people don't understand what LN GDP is. Okay. So we are going to do what other people have done with other variables. We're going to make a label. You can see that the label of this variable is empty. So we're going to make a label of this variable so that we don't confuse ourselves or other people. And the way to generate a label of a variable is literally LA var. So basically, this is a label the variable LNGDP as the log of GDP. Okay, so label variable LNGDP, this variable, in the log of GDP. So if I click do again, you're going to see that now the label has been created for you. And because we have this save function over here, this data will have saved all of these changes into this new data set. Okay, and we're going to save the do file again. And then let's just double check and take stock of what we have done so far. So first of all, we open a dataset called country.dta. We made some changes to the dataset, and then we saved it in the new data format, in the new data. Okay, so that should be theoretically, it should be that this dataset would not have any of these changes, but this dataset should, right? Because you open the dataset here, you made changes, you didn't save it into this dataset, you save it into a new dataset, right? So let's double check. Okay, so if we just double check and open country.dta, you're gonna see that if you go to the back, the log GDP is not created. That means we have not contaminated the dataset, but the original dataset. But if we click country underscore one.dta, you can see that the variable is created. So that means that you have created a brand new variable using the do file, and then you have not contaminated the original data set. That is exactly what we want to do.